What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold podcast for Tuesday, February 17th, Mardi Gras edition, coming at you from the Tiger Den in beautiful St. Charles Parish, Louisiana. LSU baseball defeats Kent State last night 10-7. It was a very good performance by LSU against a pretty good Kent State team. Jake Brown, 2 more home runs. We talked about it. He's got 4 homers now in 4 games, really 4 homers the last 2 days. We talked about it. One of my bold predictions was that Jake Brown would hit between 17 and 20 home runs. We talked a lot about how LSU needed a power bat. They needed someone to emerge and maybe be that 17, 18, 19, 20 homer guy. And early returns are maybe Jake Brown is going to be that guy. Chris Stanfield sat out for the second consecutive day. Tanner Reeves was in left field. He did a nice job last night. LSU went with a left-hand heavy lineup against Kent State's starting pitcher. Jay Johnson said after the game the swelling just hadn't gone down enough for him to swing the bat. He could catch, he could run, he could play the field, but he can't swing the bat. Be careful what you see on X and who you follow on Twitter and those kinds of things. I've seen some people already saying Chris Stanfield has a broken hand. No one from LSU has officially said that. I would suspect that Chris Stanfield will not be in the lineup tomorrow afternoon against Nichols. So I think the next sort of spot that we'll worry about Chris Stanfield would be on Friday when LSU plays Indiana. Mason Braun, a 2-out, 2-strike opposite field, 3-run homer, his first career homer in the bottom of the second, pushed LSU's lead to 4-0. We talked a lot about Mason Braun. I told you I thought he would be LSU's left-handed DH. He started on opening day, did not start on Saturday or Sunday, was back in the starting lineup last night and responded. He got plenty of praise from Jay Johnson after the game, as he should. Mason Braun is what it looks like when you look at a baseball player and you look at a freshman and you look at that swing. Really, really, really good things ahead for Mason Braun, not just for the remainder of his career, but for the remainder of this season. I think for LSU to get where they will ultimately need to go and want to go, I think Mason Braun will have to be a big, big part of that. I don't know that there'll be one singular everyday DH, but certainly Mason Braun could get the Lions' share of the at-bats there. On the pitching side, Jaden Newt, a little up and down performance. I thought he got squeezed a little bit early. He hung a pitch to Kent State's best player, who hit a 3-run homer and hit it off the scoreboard. It was just an up and down performance. There's no other way to say it. It wasn't, his stuff wasn't bad. It just wasn't, he just didn't locate, and it just wasn't where you would want him to be. But I suspect he'll continue to be a key piece to this moving forward. It just may be out of the bullpen once the games settle into more of a 3-game weekend, midweek, 3-game weekend, midweek. I think he settles more into a role out of the bullpen. It was good to see Ethan Plog get back out there. DJ Primo came in to pitch for the first time this year. He struggled a little bit. But again, now you're talking about a sort of down-the-line guy. Grant Fontenot came in. Again, I thought he got squeezed a little bit on the strike zone, and then Gavin Guidry got the last 7 outs to get the save. And so Gavin Guidry has a win and a save in the first 4 games, and he looks all the world like he's going to be LSU's best reliever and really, really one of those weapons that Jay Johnson will deploy for multiple innings at a time in different spots in the game. So you think about Kason Evans and Zach Cowan last year. You think about Griffin Herring before that. Jay Johnson likes to have that multi-inning weapon. It doesn't have to be a guy who just comes in the 9th inning and gets a save. And so it looks for all the world like Gavin Guidry will be that guy for LSU this year, and it's great to have him back, and it's great to see him out there with his swagger on the mound and, back to being what we all want and know Gavin Guidry can be. LSU and Nichols, 1 p.m. Central tomorrow. I believe Reagan Ricken will start the game. He's a freshman pitcher from California. He hasn't pitched yet this year. There's another freshman, Zion Theophilus. He has not pitched yet this year. He could start the game. He looked real good his last couple of outings in leading up to the season in the preseason scrimmages. We haven't seen Connor Benj, and we could see some guys come back from Friday and earlier in the week, maybe a Cooper Williams, maybe Zach Cowan. Again, with the day off on Thursday before LSU plays again on Friday, they'll need to get some innings, I think, out of Theophilus and Rick and others. But if they could get this thing maybe to the 6th or 7th inning, maybe some of the more regular guys, Cooper Williams, Zach Cowan, maybe a Marcos Paz, maybe some of those guys could take it home. So LSU 4-0 and plays Nichols tomorrow. LSU's men's basketball team is on the road tonight. They play at Texas. Max McKinnon and Ron Zipper will be back for LSU. Of course, DJ Thomas is out for the year. Jalen Reed's out for the year. That'll be a tough place to play tonight at the Moody Center. Texas is not a good team, but at this point, it's just hard to really predict that LSU basketball could win very many games, and especially very many games on the road. They did really acquit themselves nicely on Saturday at Tennessee. Of course, nobody, was paying attention to that. Endymion Saturday, baseball, women's basketball was playing South Carolina, you name it. There were a lot of things going on. It'll be interesting to see if LSU can hang around tonight and put on a performance that would be similar to the one against Tennessee. And who knows, maybe they could steal this thing on the road. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Jake Olson situation. So we reported over the weekend, Pete Nakos and Matt Zenitz and other college football writers had reported that Jake Olson was intending to leave LSU. He's LSU's safeties coach, and he was going to take a job with the Washington Commanders. Well, last night it was announced that Jake Olson will be staying at LSU. Yet another win for Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock and Verge Osbury and anybody you want to credit with this. LSU's alignment continues to pay dividends in the sense that guys just don't really want to leave. And if opportunities come their way, surely they're going to consider them. You think about Blake Baker and the Tulane head coaching job, but Lane and the staff and whatever, if he's going to get a new contract or whatever it's going to be, LSU convinced him to stay, and overall that's a good thing. LSU's safety play was very good last year, and that continuity in the secondary on defense will continue. So Jake Olson will remain at LSU as their safeties coach in 2026. I also want to talk a little bit more about, we had an abbreviated edition yesterday of the podcast, this jersey patch agreement between LSU and Woodside Energy. I know a lot of people tend to not like these sorts of things in modern day sports. And I certainly understand that, and I understand the tradition, and I understand the recoil that some people might have when they hear about these things. But I think it's important to point out that this is expected to be an 8-figure deal for all 21 varsity sports to have the Woodside Energy patch on the jersey. You think about now that revenue sharing has begun, not NIL, but revenue sharing, LSU has to put aside $20.5 million every calendar year in revenue sharing for their student athletes. Now they divvy that up. Each school divvies that up how they so choose. LSU puts, I don't know, whatever it is, 18 or so million of it into football, right? And that's the vast majority of it. But if you could get a 10, and again, I don't know we don't know the numbers on the deal, but if you're getting 10 or $12 million back in this deal, to put towards that expenditure. It's a groundbreaking thing. LSU is the first school to announce one of these jersey patch deals. The Woodside Energy folks, they're an Australian company, but they've built a plant in Calcasieu Parish in Louisiana, $17.5 billion. They have offices in Houston. They have offices in Louisiana. They've done some things here in Louisiana that certainly show they want to be a part of this community and they want to be a part of LSU's brand. Their logo is actually a red and white logo, but the patch is in purple and gold. And they talked about that in an interview that they did with Matt Moscona, just talking about how they wanted to respect the tradition and they wanted to be mindful and prideful of their privilege to be in this agreement with LSU. So I know these kinds of things tend to be, oh, this is not the college sports that I grew up with. This is not the college sports that I love. And you're right, it's not. But if you want LSU to be successful and you want to be able to fire Brian Kelly or hire Lane Kiffin or spend $40 million on a roster and have the number one transfer portal class, or you want to try to get Kim Mulkey some more horses so she can beat Dawn Staley, or you want Jay Johnson to still be able to win national titles, if it gets to a point where you want to fire Matt McMahon and you have to pay a buyout and you have to pay a new coach, all of this money has to come from somewhere. And you can only ask donors and you can only ask boosters to light so much money on fire before they're going to start asking questions. Well, these are now revenue streams that can assist with that. And this is a groundbreaking agreement. It was well over a year in the making, and LSU had the first deal with Nike here when Nike started their thing here a few months ago. They featured LSU's athletes first because LSU's brand is what it is, and LSU's athletes and the both past and present have committed to this being such a great brand. You think of, and regardless of what you think about any of these individuals, but you think about Livy Dunn and Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz and Angel Reese and Flau'jae and Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham before that. All of these guys and gals have promoted and turned LSU's brand into something that other people want to collaborate with. And whether it's Nike or Woodside Energy, these are groundbreaking deals, and these are going to keep LSU athletics at the forefront in all sports where we want it to be. These Woodside Energy folks, they could have just put their jersey patch on the football team. They could have just done a deal with the baseball team. This is an all 21 men's and women's varsity sports. And again, you don't have to like it, but you have to respect the job that LSU's administration has done and the commitment that the Woodside Energy people have made. So all in all, an outstanding thing for LSU, an outstanding revenue driver for LSU. And those sorts of things continue to show that LSU's in alignment and they're at the forefront and they're at the cutting edge of this new era and this new wave of college sports. So that'll do it for today. I'll be at Alex Box Stadium tomorrow for LSU and Nichols. We'll do a podcast afterwards, recapping the game. Let's hope the Tigers can get to 5-0. Good luck to the men's basketball team tonight. As always, be good to one another. If you're out enjoying the Mardi Gras, please be safe. And always, 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 go Tigers.